I think we need to plan for the 40% and have it be a goal. We can't get there. We know we've got some slush to. So go ahead, Dave.
All right, other funds. We're going to start with the fire district fund. I don't know if Adam's with us or not this evening. Okay. Shall we wait for him or move to the next area?
Skip on to the next one and let's keep moving along.
Next one will be the police fund. Property taxes are scheduled to be $467,000. Contracted deputies, $285,000. Contracted services, $35,000. Insurance and bonds, $6,500.
Hey, George Welling, just so you know, Chief Massingill's having trouble signing in. Go ahead, George. Dave.
And of course, we have the fuel and all the rest of the vehicle maintenance programs. So this fund is projected to have a surplus of $51,000.
Hey, TC Clements, could you elaborate on the discussion you've been having with the county in regards to the $60,000 increase with healthcare?
So I haven't spoken with anyone other than Henry Liebens, but I did put in a email to Mike Basonic, who's the county administrator, to ask him specifically where in the sheriff's office contract he was deriving the ability to pass along the retiree benefits increase. Also asked for a formulation on how the amount that Bedford is being billed was tabulated into the pool of retirees so that we're paying our fair share. And also ask for a list of the retirees. So he asked me for a couple of days to get it back to us. I had a phone call today with Henry Liebens. He said that in speaking with Mike that he felt like the numbers were accurate, but that in fact we should have been given advance notice and an explanation, and we should be receiving that in the next few days. But as it stands right now, every township that has contracted deputy services, we're all facing the same increase as a result of the actuarial and the retiree benefits going up in cost.
Anybody have any questions?
You'd have thought we'd have heard something about that before now. It's the first
Well,
I've heard of it.
Specifically, it says in the contract, and I don't have the email in front of me, but that the local authority is to be notified of additional expenditures or modifications to the contract. And I asked specifically if someone could demonstrate where that had taken place. I think the soft answer is going to be, whoops, we didn't do it. But no one's given me an official answer yet. I did go on to say that personally, from my vantage point as a trustee, and certainly not speaking for the board, I understand the philosophical increase. I mean, we're seeing the same increases play out in our own employee costs, but that I thought it was inappropriate to send over an invoice without A, being notified, and B, then having supportive documentation as to how that number was derived for us. So we'll see what they come up with.
What invoice did that increase first show up in?
They sent one over recently that has it in there. So we weren't notified. At least as far as I know.
No, I talked to an individual at the finance department from Monroe County. And she said in hindsight, we should have sent something out to the different townships.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions in regards to the police fund?
Yeah, what is the number is that 467,000? Is that correct?
Yes,
Is there a reason that I'm looking at the spreadsheet that got sent out a couple hours ago and I don't see 467 on that at all?
the spreadsheet that was sent out a couple hours ago was to amend the current fiscal year budget. I think that's what you're referring to. The information that we're looking at right now is in your booklet that you received several months ago.
Well, not to speak for Craig, but the title of the document is called Other Funds.
Correct.
I'm too struggling to locate some of the information within that fund. So right now, Dave, you're comfortable that 50,893 is a reasonable surplus where we sit as of today,
Yes,
and that would be pre this $60,000 contribution to the retirees' benefits for the sheriff's office deputies, correct?
correct.
So ultimately, we need $10,000 or $9,000 to fill that bill.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we're gonna have to increase the contract deputies.
By
Correct.
60,000, correct?
No,
By what?
He's already got 50, so where do you come up with the 90, I guess, TC?
no, not 90, 60, sorry.
Oh,
Six-
okay. Okay,
So it'd be an additional 9,000, not 90,000.
So what is the number for the projected?
9,900, correct?
Yes.
So we're gonna increase it to $9,000. Okay,
To what? What's the total? That didn't even print on my sheet.
well, 385 plus $9,000, bring it up to 394.
Okay, I have a question.
go
I
ahead,
don't
Mr.
even have that number, not on my sheet.
Well, I don't know, I'll tell you, Paul, I mean, this was handed out.
Are you looking on page 5? Is that what we're looking at right now?
Yes,
Contract
that's-
services.
Are there any page numbers? Mine doesn't have any page numbers on it.
Mine does.
It came from you and I printed it today.
When did I email it to you?
Are you talking about the Excel spreadsheet, Paul?
I'm talking about the other funds projection for next year. The whole package. I thought that's what we were working on.
Yeah,
Yes.
that, if you printed from the Excel file, there's no page numbering.
I have page 5.
So what file did they print from if they had numbers? Did we all
Made a
get it by
copy of mine
email?
for Nancy.
Yeah, I got a copy from downstairs.
That is printed out of a Word format, I believe, isn't it, David?
Yes,
So the Word format has pages on it, the Excel format does not.
Correct.
So Paul, if you're looking
Well,
at
this was-
contracted deputies, Paul, in the Excel spreadsheet, well, you don't have it on your computer, you got a hard copy?
Yeah, I got it right in front of me.
Okay.
What's the amount that was on there for contracted deputies? Because that particular line item never printed.
$385,000.
385?
Is, what you're looking at, was that out of the 3-ring binder, Mr. Francis, or?
Out of the 3-ring binder. No, I was
Three-
looking at the one that was just came through.
No, Dave, he printed from the Excel spreadsheet, and if he had this on his computer, it's line 101, but he's got it printed.
It's account 207000801, Paul. It's the third column to the right, 385,000. If we add 9,000 to it, it becomes $394,000.
And what was the amount that was spent on it last fiscal year? Is that enough to cover it?
Well, last fiscal year FY19 was $404,000.
And if we've got a projected increase of $60,000, how come we're budgeting less? Doesn't look like it's gonna cover it. Am I missing something?
Now, if you're,
The 385 is the information I received, Mr. Francis.
385 is where we started from. And if last year's 404, you had 60. I mean, we're looking at 464,000,
Correct.
not $9,000 increase.
Point is, there is no $50,000 surplus, right?
Well, no, there won't be after we make the increase. So that line item should probably be brought up to what? 490, close to $500,000?
What? I don't understand that.
What was the most recent bill we got from them?
Just a minute.
Okay, Chief, while he's looking at that, let's get into the fire funds. We can't be sitting duck for 45 minutes on one item. Let Dave look into it. Go ahead, Chief.
Mr. Manning gave us most of the fixed line items as far as the wages, the FICA and everything. So basically this year, the only big changes that we have as far as the budget request this year is for the first time we have put in for miscellaneous revenue. So we do have a little line item for miscellaneous revenue. In years past, we haven't done that. In years past, we have assumed that we will have no revenue for the department. Now remember, revenue comes in areas like our EMT class that we teach that some of the other departments send their folks to. Reimbursement for ambulance transport from the insurance companies, and contract work. If we would go out of state for contract work, we get reimbursed for that as well, along with like some reimbursement that we're submitting for the COVID-19 stuff. So in years past, we haven't budgeted for that at all. And then we've come back for some budget adjustments when for instance, if we send crews out of town, or if our ambulance transports are up more, then in years past, we've had to adjust medical supplies, fuel, and things like that in the past budgets. So we want to be conservative with it this year, but we also wanted to include some of that revenue in this year to help cost that and try and avoid some future budget adjustments. So certainly if it was a slow hurricane season, if we didn't get called out and we didn't have an increase in costs for that, then we don't, and we didn't anticipate, or we fell short of what the revenue anticipation was, it should be reflected in savings in each of the line items, like the fuel, the medical supplies, firefighter wages, things like that. It's probably the biggest change in the budget that you would see this year that we've submitted, is that we try to account for that ahead of time.
So Chief, you're good with $1,556,000?
Yeah, I think that that's based on I think that's based on the numbers we have as far as the collections we're gonna have. We know that the federal grant is a fixed number. I think we know that the property taxes that we're running are fixed numbers, so. Like I said, frankly, the only thing that's in question is gonna be that revenue. And, if we fall short with that revenue through the year, I'm really comfortable then that we will have some savings and line items that will keep us within the budget this year.
I have a question. I don't understand in that line you were just talking about miscellaneous revenue. What's 564,933? That's the balance.
Are you speaking in the current budget, ma'am?
I'm speaking in the document that I was just given by the finance department tonight. And it says miscellaneous requested budget 50,000, but in the balance credit, it says 564,933.
I believe that's going to be corrected. I believe that was a deposit that was made that should have went into the fire millet or the equipment and apparatus. So I think that's going to be reflected back out in that was the deposit that was intended for the equipment and apparatus millage. Is that correct, Mr. Manning?
Yes, it is.
In revenue, we sold something for that. Revenue is money coming in.
What was that, Nancy? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
It's in revenue, and I mean, did we sell something and got 564,000, or is the whole thing just a missed error or something?
Oh, no, the big error is the 486 that Mr. Ed Adam mentioned. And that's got to be taken out and reclassified, so.
Where's
So
that?
that'll drop down. So that'll drop down tremendously.
Okay, say that again, because you said 400 and something. My paper says 564,933 in revenue.
Correct. And in that number is $486,000 that has to be reallocated to a different line item. So that'll reduce that down considerably.
So what would that balance be in there then? I don't have a calculator.
We're dropping down to $78,000.
So there's $78,000 in there, and they're asking for 50,000 more.
Year to date, for this current fiscal year, there is $78,000 in that line item. The budget is for 28,000 less than what's currently in there.
Okay.
And then
I believe, I'm sorry. I believe that once the account is reconciled, I think that we're going to be, let me look, but I think that in fact, I know that once everything is caught up, our actual revenue, let me look here. So revenue at the end of this year, we expect it to be probably close to 103,000 as of the end of this year. We expect to be probably around 136,000 in revenue at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. That's why we went with we tried to go with a conservative number of 50,000 for the budget for next year, less than, or probably around a third, maybe, at least less than half of what we had in revenue this year.
Okay, that makes sense. I get it then.
So
Thank
Chief,
you.
Chief, you're calling that 50,000 under miscellaneous revenue?
I believe that's where it's placed, yes. So the miscellaneous revenue would incorporate Again, it would incorporate any contracted work that we did, some reimbursement for like if we're on wires down for a long period of time, we get reimbursement from the utility companies, reimbursement from the insurance companies for transport work. Anything else, it's all kind of lumped into that one line item.
Hey, Nancy, Dinnerberry,
Yes.
just so you know, you're hard to hear. And we're getting a lot of echo, George. I don't know if it's something to do with your end, but hard to hear Nancy. We're getting echo.
Yeah,
Okay.
Paul, we got a lot of echoes. A lot of
There's
echoes.
echoes.
So I think we should everybody again mute until we need to talk.
Okay, Chief, do you have any more to add, or you want to, anybody else have any questions in the fire fund? Okay. Dave, you want to go back to where we left off with the police?
Sure. We were talking about the contract deputies. We're gonna have to increase that line item. The last bill we paid was $106,000, $106,651 for contract deputies in the police fund. So that'd bring our current expenditures up to what, 340 and 106, $446,000, which is over budget for the current fiscal year. So the 385 that's going to have to be increased considerably, I would think.
Is everybody satisfied with what he's just said, or are there any more comments or questions in regards to it? Do we feel like we have the right amount budgeted?
That's where we were talking, that number to be like 464 with the additional
Yes.
60,000. That takes the 404,000 previous. And add another 60,000 to it.
Well, if we just use the last bill, we'd have to increase that line item up to $424,000.
Hey, while we're discussing the sheriff's bill, I've been asked a few different times about the sheriff's department. Their floor is a trip hazard. It's heaving up in the kitchen, and it's heaving up in some other areas. Gotten an estimate of around $5,000 to replace it. Or we could look at tearing the floor up, and grinding the concrete down and just leaving it concrete. So we don't have to have flooring in the future. But I don't know if you want to budget $5,000 for flooring, or if we want to let it go another year. But there is areas, because the fridge was leaking in the kitchen, the floor's heaving up. It's in rough shape. So it's coming up in the offices. But some of the offices, I think one of the offices is carpet. Ms. Dinnerberry?
Well, what's causing it? I didn't hear what's causing it.
In the cafeteria, there was a refrigerator that was leaking, and that refrigerator's been removed and replaced, but there's other areas that the floor is just in rough shape. The locker room and the hallways got some issues, but it definitely needs to be replaced. It's in rough shape, but I mentioned that we could just tear it out and have our maintenance guys tear it out or whatever at some point, and then just leave it concrete, or put some of that nice finish down for concrete. Probably a lot cheaper, I think, maybe. But replacing the floors is about $5,000. So I don't know if you want to put it in the budget or not. I was just making mention of it.
So you're saying replacing the whole floor on the police side?
Correct. It
seems
wasn't
strange
installed,
to me.
it's something. It's in rough shape compared to what we have on the township side.
Well, my vote would be to just do what you said. That wouldn't be very expensive, because I don't think this is the year we can remodel anybody's building.
Now, I agree with you, but I'm just saying it is a trip hazard over there. There's, we're talking about replacing carpet at the library that, in my opinion, doesn't need to be replaced, but we've got flooring that's heating up and causing a real trip hazard at,
You said the remedy would be just to tear it up and sand down.
I'm just
the
saying
floor.
that's just an option. And that was just me just observing over there. I didn't, I talked briefly about it with Sergeant Moody, but right now it has the same linoleum as the Township Government Center area. And I'm just saying it's in rough state. I did get just a brief quote from a local carpet man or a floor man and $5,000 to replace the flooring. I don't know how much it would be just to tear out the flooring and make it an epoxy floor or something. It could be just as much. I don't know, to put epoxy floor down, but,
Well, my comment would be that we get a quote on how to do that, how to change the floor, and then we amend the budget. If it's a trip hazard, I mean, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but it just seems strange that would be happening only in one isolated area of a building that was all built at the same time.
yeah, I think it was just poorly put down, in my opinion.
Well, Paul, you said there was also leakage in there too.
There was leakage in the lunchroom, but in other areas like the cafe or the locker room and some areas in the hallway are coming up as well. So it's not just the cafeteria. But I'll get a quote. We'll move on. I'll get a quote
Right.
on some other options. I'll bring it back to the board at a later date. Okay.
I have a question before we move on. Can
Go
you or someone clarify for me how I know we have a police millage and I know we contribute 600,000 from our general fund. How is, I mean, we have contract deputies, 600,000, and we have contract deputies over here. I don't understand how that's broken up and why it's in both of them. I mean, I just need clarification on how they mesh.
Mr. Francis. You're muted, Mr. Francis.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We contract for 10 deputies. We put 4 deputies into the millage account, which we're talking about now. And the other 6 go to the general fund section for police. So we split the bill, 60-40.
So this increase that we're talking about, it's in both sides then?
Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be.
Yes, it should be.
If that's the case, though, then we wouldn't be putting the whole 60 in this.
That was my question. Are we going to go back and do something with the general fund police?
I think we need to circle back and re-look at that.
Well, Dave just said, yes, it is. So either it is or it isn't.
Well, like I said, the last bill we paid, the police fund was charged $106,000 for the bill. So if we took that, extrapolated out, we'd have to increase this line item to $424,000. Okay?
Okay, so I just pulled up the general fund. Previous was 600. And then it was bumped up to 700 for 100,000 increase.
Well, then that 700,000 should cover it.
I didn't see that. We did that in when we went through the police fund? I don't have that.
That was that's in the file that I got from David today, showing 700,000 in contract deputies.
Well, I don't remember that happening when we went through that in the general fund, but
Well, that's a proposed change in the budget, is it not?
Yes, it is. That's all it is. file you got today is for the current fiscal year and amending the budget for this current fiscal year. So,
The only adjustment that we made on police that I know of had nothing to do with contract deputies. I thought we added, we transferred the money we budgeted of 120. We transferred that into this budget year, which increased the total 70,000. But it is not, that's for capital outlay vehicle only.
You think you're correct,
Yes.
Craig? And the thing is, the file that just came out today, now it goes back, you're showing 120,000 in for vehicles, capital outlay.
as I said before,
there's
the
no-
file that I
There's
sent
no
you today
adjustment
is for
there's
the,
no adjustment for the contract deputies, correct?
the file you received today is for amending the current fiscal year budget. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about this evening.
Then why do we keep referring to it then? Why did we get it why did we get it 2 hours ago?
I finished it up
We keep
and
talking
reviewed.
about this thing we just got. If we just got it and we don't need it, let's stop talking about it.
Well, we asked for it so we have some idea what the fund balance might be at the end of the fiscal year we're in right now.
I get it, but it's tough to discuss when you get it 2 hours ago.
I know. The issue that I see in it is if he's projecting an increase is needed in the police fund, in the general fund from 600 to 700, we need to budget 700 in the next year. So we need to recircle back and after we get through this exercise today. This is a mess.
Okay, so you want to circle back? Let's move on.
Well, before we finish looking at the budget
Yeah,
in total, yes.
Oh, you're right.
So what are we going to add to the police fund for contracted deputies? We're going to change it from 385 to increase it to,
Dave, you're gonna have to tell us. I mean, I think,
well, I suggested we increase it to $424,000. That's my suggestion.
Why?
Based on the last invoice we got from Monroe County Finance Department.
Which is a
Where they're
quarterly
leaving-
invoice, and he's taking that quarterly invoice times 4 quarters.
Right,
That's how he gets the 424. 106 per quarter times 4.
right.
Is that taking into account the surplus that's in the current budget with 50 grand? You have a 50 grand surplus in this current budget.
No, we're not talking a surplus or anything else. We're talking this line item for contract deputies. That's all we're talking about here.
I
Okay, so
know.
how much of the
Cindy,
added retirement funds are we gonna have to put in that 424 that you just talked about? Because, or is that money that you're talking about, the invoice that you received, does that include that retirement fund? Is how
Yes,
you're
it
coming up
does.
with it? Okay.
Yes.
So that bill we split, we put 106 into the police millage fund. The balance goes into the general fund, police department. So we need to take that balance of that late bill times 4, and that'll tell us what the next year's budget ought to be.
Correct.
So we're talking
I thought
about
we-
increasing it 39,000, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if it's gotta be, it's gotta be. I mean,
So we in agreement to increase that up to $424,000?
I'd say yes, we don't have any choice.
Okay, So the next area is a park operating fund.
TC, if you want to take it, the only change from the park board, I think, is they're not going to put in the doggy park at a reduction of 12,000, correct?
That's the same thing I have. Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they formally turned it in, but they met this week and made that decision. So it should reduce their total expenditures to 254 from 266.
And which lines that come out for a total there?
It would be capital outlay, Rick.
$70,000 line item,
Would be reduced to 58.
58?
Yes, sir, which would be a net reduction of 12,000 in expenditures.
Okay.
Okay.
They had a net zero budget that they came in with, but could cut that given the additional resources hit that we're anticipating.
Okay, so we're moving the
Is the-
70 down to 58. Is that what you said, 12,000 less?
Yes, sir.
Is the Recreation Commission 25,000, is that a donation?
It's part of the contracted commitment with the Bedford Community League. As far as maintenance and management of some of the parks, some of the shared programs between the parks.
Yeah, but why are we increasing it 5,000?
I believe that was a commitment based on a previous year, Nancy.
This says 25,000 in the previous year.
I understand. The commitment from the board was they had made the commitment of the $5,000 increase based on additional expenditures. And my understanding when they met this week is they would rather pull other funds and leave that in place based on their commitment.
Well, I mean, is it a written commitment or verbal or handshake? Or I've not seen any agreement between the community ed and I'd like to leave it at 25,000 until we get the minutes when the board approved that because I don't remember it. What's the capital outlay for 70,000?
That's been reduced down to 58,000, Nancy.
Oh, that's what we're reducing to 58?
Yes, it's down to 58,000 now.
So to Nancy's point, do we change the recreation back to 25?
I would like to see the agreement before we go ahead. We can always increase it as a budget adjustment if, you know, that doesn't come in if we don't have a copy of it before we approve the budget.
Did we lose TC?
Does this take into account the lost revenue for a lot of the programs that are in place? I mean, gosh, I don't think anything's even happening this summer. But Nancy, I talked to the park board today, Connie and Jerry, and they told me the only reduction they can do is the 12,000. That's for the doggy park. That was all they told me. So I can't answer the question about the $30,000. Mr. Francis?
In their capital improvement or capital outlay account, they have $60,000 for new playground equipment at White Park. Is that something that absolutely has to be done in this next fiscal year? Or can that be put off a year due to our financial straits? Being that we fund all of it out of the
That's
general
right.
fund.
Right. That's what I'm saying, that, you know, Connie and Jerry may have said that that's all they can reduce, but it's our job to set the budget. I mean, they're going to have to do with whatever the board decides.
Well,
I'm back. I apologize, Nancy. I got lost by signal. You were asking me a question.
I just want to keep in mind, everybody to keep in mind as somebody who deals with these parks on a daily basis and is at them on a pretty regular basis. They're in rough shape. They're underfunded now. They're trying to go for millages. They're the pride and joy of our community. I don't disagree with you, Nancy. I'm trying to cut this budget down to bare minimum, but I don't think you can give too much with the parks. They're running a lean show here.
We
sorry, what?
all have to,
Nancy, you had a question for me about the capital outlay?
yeah, I was wondering what that was. David told me that it's moved down to 58, but I didn't know what even the 58,000 was for. It's just says capital outlay.
So the bulk of it is the playscapes, namely at White and Carr, have deteriorated to a point that maintenance can only do so much repair and keep them in a good working condition. We actually had a company come in and evaluate them for safety, and they made some significant recommendations that given the life of them, some of them had to be replaced. So the park board is facing at this point losing playscapes and or replacing or leaving them in a status which I feel like would present potential problems for children playing on them. So go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, there's parts of White Park that ain't even replaced yet. I mean, White Park is really a big one, what you're talking about, that has a lot of work that needs to be done. That playscape's expensive.
Yeah, White Park is the one. And the problem is these playscapes are just insanely expensive. And so they've worked hard to even call this number down from what originally started off as $112,000. So I agree with Paul. There is almost zero room to cut this budget unless we're going to physically start removing apparatus from the parks and then just not having the playscapes for the residents, which I think would not be advantageous.
Okay,
What's
so
gonna really- I'm sorry, Nancy.
On the revenue side, we have amended budget of last year was 60,000 in contributions and zero now. So, I mean, do we charge to have these teams from Toledo come out and use our diamonds? Do we charge for, I mean, is any of this going to fix up the ball diamonds? I mean, 3B could be contributing. My point is, we have to look for other revenue if we're going to maintain the expenditures that they have.
Right, and Nancy, to your point on the revenue of the 60,000, that was, I believe, in large part, sale of two what were considered pocket parks. And so the park board continues to go through the property list and try to jettison anything that's costing us money. You know, Supervisor has mentioned multiple times the mowing cost of some of these pocket and top lot parks. They're trying to jettison. It requires getting through some title work. We just redid the contracts with the 3 different teams that utilize our fields for travel baseball. We felt like the township was not being compensated the way it should. So all 3 contracts are more favorable. So I feel like they've turned every stone they can at this point to generate revenue that's within reason. At this point, the only thing that the board's going to do is cut the budget and force the decision as to whether a playscape will stay open or be removed permanently.
So do they charge for people using, I mean, not 3B, I'm talking about these teams that come out from Ohio that have, you know, leagues and baseball, men's leagues.
So all of the
Couples.
diamonds, any of the leagues that you see taking place on our fields are done through the host teams, which do have contracts with the board. So I'm not aware of any situation where a Toledo team just calls and says, we're using your diamonds. That would be something that would go through 3B, for instance. Or I forget the other name of the 2 teams, but they also use Samaria and Indian Creek.
No, my point is, do they pay?
Yes, there is a contract where they are paying, and there also is a shared agreement with regard to maintenance, utilities, it's the field. We just talked the last meeting about the maintenance of the roof at the concession stand. That's all part of the contracts. And I can't speak any more specifically on each individual contract. I don't have it in front of me, and they were just recently redone just prior to all of this COVID. So I haven't seen them.
And I know that I think the teams that are utilizing like Samaria Park, they're local travel baseball teams with
Yes.
local kids on them.
Yeah, all teams that have a contract are local teams.
Keep in mind, to TC's point about turning over all stones, we are looking to move any property that we legally can. We are hamstrung on quite a few of the pocket parks that say they can never be sold, in other words. So the ones that can be, like right now, there's one in Mohawk Trails that is currently up for sale and probably will be sold pretty soon. They're looking at 25 grand for that. That's something that would go directly to a project like the basketball courts at White Park are in terrible shape. The tennis courts at Carr Park, terrible shape. Either we need to tear these things out. I mean, the skate park
Yeah.
is closed. It's been closed for 8 months in terrible shape. There's just a lot of stuff. I mean, we got the disc golfers that utilize Parmalee Park. They put in their own tee boxes. They put in their own tees, boots to the ground. They're like TC said, they're working hard to make sure that, utilizing volunteers and selling things we don't need. And I'm working with them on quite a bit of it, but I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff that needs major attention. And that's part of the reason why we're selling some of the lots, to cover some of those big expenses. But that's why it's important for a CIP plan for the future of all this stuff, so we properly maintain it and keep up on it. Any other thoughts and questions for the parks? Okay, moving on, Dave.
So on the parks, we're going to reduce capital outlay down to $58,000, correct? That's the only change.
Correct.
All right, next is fire equipment. I don't know if Adam's still with us or not.
Chief Massengill just left to a house fire.
Oh,
Unless Paul Francis can handle it. Mr. Francis, can you speak to this?
I wasn't in on any of the preparation of the budget number. I never met with him.
That's okay. We can circle back to it. It's no big deal. Let's move on.
okay. Transit system fund is the next. Consists of property taxes for cash coming in and contracted services for funds going out. We're looking at 291,000 in revenue, excuse me, 250,000 in expenses. Next is Metro Act Fund. Same thing, our revenue is projected at 20,000, expenses are projected at 20,000. The 20,000 relates to sidewalk construction and general maintenance. Library.
I got a few notes that I took on the library. As you all know, we're working on the sidewalks this week with Local 886 in partnership. Their apprenticeship program is doing those sidewalks. Not sure what the concrete cost will be. Hopefully it's around 1,000 to 1,500, so we should see a savings there. The parking lot job that's being done was about 5,100. Their budget was $3,000, so that should offset each other right there. Some things that I personally think we need to keep focusing on with the library. A chiller needs to be installed. I've been told by multiple companies that the chiller is on its last leg and it continues to eat us up with fixes and different stuff on it and maintenance, and it doesn't run at 100%. So that's something that's in between $40,000 and $50,000 to replace. I think their chairs at 1,600, children's furniture, 30 inches, 5,000, lockers for the students, 1,000, and then Al Pryor was looking into a possibility of switching to hand dryers to save on paper, so we put 2,000 in there. But we'll let the board know kind of what we come up with. But personally, I think we need to hold off on carpet this year. Look at some of the things that are a little more efficient. As far as landscaping outside, I have maintenance working on that right now for the next week to get it looking really nice. If we need mulch, we'll spread mulch, get with one of the churches. I don't think we need to be sticking a bunch of money in whatever was budgeted. I think it was
10,000.
10,000 for outdoor. You know, changing up, we'll pull out some bushes if they need to be pulled. We'll make sure the weeds are down and get it looking nice. But personally, I think we've done a lot. We're doing the parking lot this year. We're doing the sidewalks, which, we're getting the mechanical stuff taken care of. We're getting the, the controls done, LEDs done, chiller done. I think we need to stay with the high efficiency stuff, save on the bills, and then do the, the carpet in the maybe in the next couple of years and redecorate the front desk, or not the front desk, but the desk in the back that they want to, redecorate or whatever at a $30,000 ticket. Save that for,
Reconfigure, not redecorate.
Reconfigure the desk. You're right, Craig. Save that for another year or so. But I think we continue doing in my opinion, the efficient stuff to save the taxpayers the money, and this money will last us longer.
I'll, just to jump in real quick, I just jot some stuff down, just to almost like give the board an update, I guess, of everything going on with the millage. I think all of this is for sure within this fiscal, and a majority of it's within the actual calendar year. We got the control systems for the HVAC, had budgeted 52,000 for that. That cost 42,000. We got the control systems for the lights next to nothing. That was supposed to cost 12 grand. We got that done for pretty much nothing. Repair tile flooring, we had budgeted 5 grand. We made some trade-offs, I guess. It was like we didn't completely redo that job, got a couple things fixed, cost $50. He said, Mr. Crony said, seal and restripe the parking lot. That cost 5, budgeted 3. But I think that's a wash with the sidewalk stuff and that added sidewalk from the library to the school, with donations from local
886.
Local 886. Then that was, so I
Well,
think
if
that's
you're
a
gonna
wash.
talk about the donations. Henry Gertzweiler donated the mesh. You got Stevenson's Concrete donated the concrete at a very low price, and you got Tim Steinman that gave us a great price over there as well. So, and our maintenance guys worked a little bit on that. So it was a partnership.
It was huge. One of the things that was a big ticket item on the millage was added rolling shelves in the history room. That was going to be 25 grand. That was donated from Concordia University. So that was just another donation that's covers that. I'm looking for the tree removal. We had 7,500. That cost 2,500. We got the panels replaced. Those 6 panels. That was in the fall. We got the interior painted. We were a little over budget, but that job got done. We had the bid that we accepted was $29,999, and the job got done for $22,900. We got new chairs and tables in the YA teen room, and got updated bids for cleaning over there. So there's a lot going on with that millage, and I just want to give like a little update on it. That we're saving, like we're under and we're over. You know what I mean? But it's like it's pretty in line, and I would say we're in the green on it budget wise.
Ms. Nerd?
Yeah, I appreciate the savings. I appreciate the supervisor and Craig working hard to find alternatives. However, you have to remember that we have an advisory board that's appointed by this board. When I served on the library board, I saw them working very hard. They're very dedicated. They're dedicated to the public and they're dedicated to the library and that facility. I think that we would be short-sighted if we didn't do the carpet. They put this out to the public. They did the hard work to get the millage passed. They put it out to the public for a schedule of things that they had planned. And sometimes you can look at something and you don't see the where, you don't see the need. I think that we need to stick with the advisory board's recommendations on the schedule of these things. For one, I don't want to offend them for the hard work they did. And for two, I think sometimes a woman can see wear and tear easier than a gentleman. That's just my opinion.
Craig, I'll give you the floor. Just give me 1 second. I agree with you 100%. They do a good job. They put a lot of hard work and effort into all they do. But I will tell you this, that a huge chunk of that carpet was just put in a few years ago, down the center aisle, and I might be off a year or two. I mean, it's the whole entryway all the way to the back of the fireplace is only a few years old. And when I walked over there with a carpet guy and looked at that, it's in very good shape. We don't need to replace that, in my opinion, with carpet squares right now. I think a little study needs to happen with the carpet. Do we need to put the carpet in every single room right now? I'm just saying $200 and something thousand is a lot of money to spend on carpet. I get it. Carpet squares will last a long time. They'll last a lot longer than your typical average carpet that was put down originally when the building was put down. The carpet squares have come a long way, that you can pull them out and replace them just like we do at Township Hall. But I definitely think something needs to be gone back to the drawing table with that, because when we talked to, I think Mr. Jacobs, Jim Jacobs, architect, he met us over there. We talked through it where they want to reconfigure that front desk. He's thinking about $70,000. There's only budgeted 30. And that's something that you have to do all together. You can't put the carpet down, then do that. You have to do the whole thing as one. It's a big project, replacing that carpet and reconfiguring that desk back there. I'm thinking, it's a big deal, big project. I think a lot of time needs to be spent on it. I think the library advisory board, we could charge them with doing their homework on it and doing some study work on it, and bringing it to the board to see what our thoughts are.
Well, that's all I'm asking, that you have them come and talk to the board and give their perspective. I appreciate your perspective, but I think that we need to hear from the advisory board as well before we can the whole thing.
I'm not saying can the whole thing. I'm saying put it off a year and let's take care of the chiller. The chiller's not even on this list, and I've been told it needs to be replaced by 2 or 3 different companies. So I'm just saying, to me, I agree with Craig. We've saved in a lot of areas, a lot more than we've spent. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we can charge the library advisory board with continuing on, looking into the carpet, what our options are, how much it's really going to cost to do the whole job. It hasn't gone out to bid. I think they had an estimate from one company that does most of the libraries in Michigan. I think it was, $200,000. But yeah, well, that's just my thoughts. I just don't know if we can afford to do both in 1 year, the chiller and the carpet and the desk. That was my thoughts. Mr. Steiner?
So basically, Paul, you're saying you got a couple $100,000 in that capital outlay of 247 for carpet. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's monies for the carpet, I think $200,000+ for the
Okay.
carpet. And I think that's reconfiguring the desk as well, as part of that bid. Or is that, Craig, is that just the carpet, the 212,000? Yes, it is.
So it's
Because they have budgeted
it's been a-
$30,000 to reconfigure the desk. But what I'm getting
Yeah.
from Tim Jacobs was that's about a $70,000-$80,000 project of what they want. So, or, no, I take that back. I'm speaking to the back. Okay, never mind. The actual thing I was talking about was to the side. It was like a sound deafening box that they were talking about putting in. That was gonna be the 70,000-80,000, but reconfiguring that back desk could be closer to that $30,000. Sorry for the confusion. But
Okay, and then-
either way, it's still a $250,000 price tag for both of them.
Okay, my other question was, did I miss contracted services going up 28,000? What that was for?
So I was just gonna say, like, go to the first question, it's been a long time since like we all met, and I'm trying to remember like what all, I wanna say that the 247 was set for, that was the carpet, if I'm not mistaken. To Nancy's point, again, that wasn't directly from the library advisory board, but I think even Miss Russ had said, like in an email, like given the current circumstances, obviously it would be the pleasure of the board, but don't know if wouldn't be most prudent to maybe wait on that giant ticket item and not do that this year. I mean, that's if I'm not mistaken, that's what's in the budget for, but I don't think, and yeah, I would be more than happy to hear more from the library advisory board, beyond my own personal opinions.
Hey, Dave,
Contracted services.
yeah, I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna see under contracted services, the painting is still in there. At 22,000, correct? That was charged in there.
That's 46. You think that contracted services was,
There's painting charge in there.
We've spent 37,000 so far through April. Does that include the painting job, or is that in addition to the painting job?
We still owe some on the painting job. I only think we've paid 75% of it because we haven't been able to do the final walkthrough.
Okay.
we approved a voucher for payment for 22,900.
So if that's going to come out of this current fiscal year, so is that billed in error? Is that billed into the contract service into the next fiscal year?
All I'm saying is when I got the bill from Dave, it says pay 75% of whatever the bill was. Till we
So
do the
maybe that
final-
it,
That's all I'm saying.
Right. So we just need to find out if that bill came in already and we're already paying it, it's coming out of this fiscal year, and we've got a little over a month to go. The question was, did that money accidentally, no, I shouldn't even say accidentally, but was it also placed in the 2021 budget and not needed in those contract numbers?
That's what I'm trying to say. Rick.
Yeah,
Thank
so,
you.
so if we can find that out, that you might be able to pull, 18, 20,000 out of contract service. Once we find that.
Ms. Tenneberry? No hand, your hand's up. Dave, can you look into that? Speak to
what,
that.
what, I have a note for contracted services that says, some of the things it includes is money for reupholstering worn chairs, the window washing and carpet cleaning, which was already in the last year's budget, and then a chunk for HVAC repairs, which is not enough to replace the chiller, but there's still some extra money available should that happen. So I don't know, but that's the notes I have for contracted services.
So we
Dave?
currently know that part of this that shows is the paint. So the new budget of 46 would not include 75% of that paint that has already been paid.
I'm asking Dave. That's what I'm asking Dave. I
No,
don't
that's,
know.
I'm saying that
Okay.
75% was paid, so it shouldn't be in here. I don't know who came up with the 46.3, but it should not be part of that because 75% was already paid, and that's where part of this 37,650 is.
But what's Mr. Montry talking about the total invoices paid, the 22,000?
That must have not have been the total invoice then. That must have been the 75%.
Okay.
That'd be
It is.
22,000.
Okay.
Well, if the painting was done this fiscal year, it'll be charged this current fiscal year. There won't be any carryover.
So everything should be pulled out if it was put in the 2021.
Do we have bills yet for the, from CSO doing the controls? Have we got the bills yet for that?
No, we haven't seen the bills yet. The job is completed, and I believe it's online. They're working with a library right now to put it online, but I think it's totally complete. Job's done. So I haven't seen bills yet for it. Trudy, have they come in yet?
If they had, you would have signed them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember calling in. Okay, any more questions with the library? What do we want to do? What do we want to budget? What do we want to put in for this year? I'm just saying it, my point is I don't want to see the millage money get down too low with some of the carpet and the desk and the chiller not get done. To me, the chiller is one of the last things to get done in that building efficiency wise. We've done everything else. I would hate to see us run low on funds for the millage funds and that chiller not get done. That's all.
What's your estimate of the cost of that chiller, Paul?
40 to 50,000.
Okay.
It's a big chunk of money, and that's why I'm saying and I'm not saying the carpet doesn't need to be done. Okay, we're the outside of that center aisle. It is in poor shape in some areas. It's in good shape in some other areas, like the quilt room and some of these other rooms. It's not in bad shape. I don't necessarily disagree with them to replace all of the rooms with tiles. I just want to make sure that's what's best. We've talked about linoleum and different things, but for sound in the library, we want to stay away from that. But you know, there's been a little discussion about the vending machines. I know the vending machines, there's a company that makes a decent amount of money every month to hold vending machines in there. I had talked about, they get so much traffic in there while we're reconfiguring areas. I mean, have we talked about putting a little cafe area in there and letting a local coffee shop sell coffee out of there, or whoever? I don't know. I mean, there's so much traffic in there. You know, you've got 100 teens in there a day. But like I said, I'd like to see more of a study in that area. And I've talked to all this about Jody, you know what I mean? But keep in mind too, I want to read this, the millage, what it says, that the people voted on. Upon the taxable and real tangible personal property within Bedford Township Board of Monroe County, Michigan for a period of 5 years beginning in 2018 through 22, all inclusive for the purpose of providing certain funding for the Bedford Township Library for general building and grounds operations and maintenance, and for capital expenditures for building and grounds improvements and replacements. The estimated revenue for the first year of the levy, if the proposition is approved, shall be approximately $274,000. Okay, this is what the people voted on. And I keep hearing, oh, we told the people this is what they voted on. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with what they have together and what they, talk to some people on, but not everybody's seeing their list. This is what they voted on in the ballot box. Ms. Tinderberry?
That is the wording of the ballot. That is not what people vote on. People don't even read that when they go in there. The library board or the advisory board put out a packet showing what was needed. There's all kinds of things that color-coded
I get
things
it.
in that packet that went out to the people. And I'm gonna tell you, I've been in the election business for 20-some years, and I know people don't go in there and read all the legalese in those, the proposals that are on the ballot. And if they do, most of them come out and say they don't understand it anyway, and Trudy can verify that. So it's not about, it is true, that's what was written, but that's not what the people voted on about the.
What do you mean? They go into a ballot box, that's what they read to vote. This Trudy, was the carpet on there? On the ballot, carpet on the ballot.
It's not on the ballot, it's in the packet,
That's what I'm saying. I get the packet, but how do you know everybody got the packet?
because they, okay.
I'm just saying that, I'm not disagreeing with you that it needs to be.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm
Don't say
not,
you're
because
not.
I've already told the library advisory board it needs to be done. I'm not saying, but I also know that there's certain things that we need to take care of, which is the chiller being one of them. That's all I'm saying. Certain things should come before that. That's all I'm saying. And if we have the money this year, then let's do it all, Mr. Francis.
I think the ballot was worded to give the board, this board, the flexibility to adjust what might have been a wish list to what's actually happened. Now, that was the chiller in that list? No, I don't think it was it?
No,
And that's come up and it's a needed item. I think the ballot wording was fine. That's what it ought to be. It ought to allow the elected board the flexibility that it needs. You can't spell out everything, and then if you didn't spend it, you're held accountable. That's not what this is all about. It allows you the flexibility to get the job done. We're in charge of maintaining that building. They're in charge, the county is in charge of staffing and the rest of the operation, but we're in charge of maintaining the building. And I guess, something came up after that millage was approved, it wasn't even considered in there. It might have a higher priority than replacing all of the carpet. Maybe we can do some of the carpet. Nobody's arguing that it's not needed at some point.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I'm just wondering, are we changing any of the numbers? We've spent 25 minutes on this issue and we haven't done anything. If not, I can probably move on.
My personal opinion is leave them like they are. This is a budget that has nothing to do with the general fund. This won't be impacted by our general fund crisis.
Let's move on then.
Next area is water revenue fund. This is yours, Mr. Francis, isn't it?
Well, yes. There's not much there. We are budgeting, I don't remember putting $30,000 in there, but I don't have my detailed worksheet on what I sent in, but was it $30,000 in interest
Yes,
on saving?
yes. I'll double check it tomorrow, okay?
Well, that's the
I'll
one.
look it up tomorrow and then let you know.
I think that might be a good number because most of the CDs were invested out of the water fund's money. And the
Correct.
CDs do generate income.
Yes,
So I guess I'd leave it like it is.
okay,
That's the reason for the big increase, because we got CDs
right.
used out of that fund.
Ms. Tinkerberry?
My question is, in the expenditures, the balance is 168,357, and we're for contracted services. I mean, that doesn't.
What's
really
that? As I remember, that was the cost of putting a water line under the railroad track on Lewis Avenue, which is what we committed to do using because that, excuse me, is a proper use of the funds in that water fund.
Yes, that's where the costs went.
It looks to me like that's what's left. It doesn't say spent, it says the balance.
Well, the balance is how much we've spent year to date. It shows up on all the monthly financial statements is the same
Balance
item.
is negative.
That's what we've paid so far through the end of April in that account. And the bulk of that 168, if not all of it, is to extend that water line underneath the tracks.
Paul, do we have budgeted in here underwater for the roundabout? Could be around 60 to 70,000 to relocate that water line for that project.
Budgeted in there? No, I don't think so.
No.
Well, it'll be something for next fiscal year. That's something we need to probably put in there. It could be about that.
I know that we had talked about that we would, for the extension of that line, if we need to, we don't really know if we need to yet, but if we do, we're gonna pay for it out of the water fund.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be part of the project. Probably
I am too.
should probably put the number in there.
I don't think that's a bad idea, just because of how much, there's enough in the fund balance in that fund. I would think that it would be, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
70,000.
$70,000?
Yep. And Mr. Francis, that changed from the original number we were told at 40.
You're right.
So put 70 in there now, and if we don't need it, it could change, but that's what I'm being told now.
Okay, will do.
So you're adding a line item that's not showing currently?
No, we're gonna put it in, contracted services. 70,000 to extend the water line.
To relocate.
So you're gonna call that 75?
Yes.
And if we put it in this fund, that means the general fund wouldn't be responsible for it. So we're still, I think, still gonna come in pretty close to our original budget on that project.
For the roundabout?
Well, I think, Mr. Francis, we have enough budgeted in our roads funds for next fiscal year. If it does go over the 10% and we have to come up with another 30,000, then it's there. We have the funds available, but it's got to go out for bid first to really see where we're at.
I agree.
So, okay.
The next area is the rehab fund. There hasn't been a lot of activity. I mean, people are paying what they owe, but there's no new loans that have gone out in quite some time.
Well, why don't we advertise it, put the word out there? I mean, people just don't know about this program. I mean, we don't have a ton of money in there, but I mean, with what's going on right now, I mean, we should be putting that word out there, you know, that, hey, this money's here. If you need a grant or a loan, you know, this is an area that could be, you know, tapped into right now. So this is something the board probably needs, you know, to look at a little heavier. I mean, we just don't advertise that we have this program in place. So moving on.
Fair point, fair point. Fair point.
All right, next comes all of the SADs. These were taking revenue in from assessment, interest, and then paying off the bonds and the interest. So I don't think we need to go line by line on all of these. Unless the
Does
board
anybody
would
have
like
any
to.
questions on the SADs? Trudy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, there's really nothing we can do. It's money going out, money coming in. It's
Okay.
already set.
Yeah, there should be no net expense to the township on any of those.
No,
Correct. So then at page 34, we have the Downtown Development Authority. Their budget is the same as the current year budget.
Anybody have any thoughts or concerns or questions on the DDA budget? Hey, Dave, moving on.
Moving on, we have Sewer O&M Fund, and that's Mr. Francis.
Well, we do projections on what the income, excuse me, expenses might be, and that's how we came up with those numbers. Anybody have any question on that? As a
I do.
group?
I have a question as to the employees, the deputy treasurer's salary, administration costs, finance director's salary, clerical wages. Is this accurate as to how much time is spent on the sewer O&M? I mean, is Dave Manning spending 50% of his time on the sewer O&M?
I would say yes. And just in the day-to-day activities. And the deputy treasurer, that would be a yes.
I mean, my point is when you add up all the employees that are working on it, it's, I mean, you could almost hire, you know, I don't know. It just seems like quite a lot. But I just wanted to make sure it was accurate, what was being worked on, you know, is Dave really working 50% on that area, you know?
Yes.
I think it's a best estimate of it. We don't keep time records to back that up, but
No.
it is worked on by more than one person.
Mhm.
Speaking on that fund, I understand we got a call the other day from the water department that you, Mr. Supervisor, or your deputy has inquired about the water department's interest, if any, in printing and collecting our sewer bills. Is that true?
Yeah, because we're paying
We got a
$25
call from
million.
them. Pardon?
Just inquiring, we're paying $2.5 million. I mean, it's just a question. I'm looking at everything that we do.
$2.5 million on what?
Well, how much do we spend quarterly, you know, to the sewer department?
That has nothing to do with printing the bills. That's how much it costs to operate the plant.
Oh, I know that. I'm just saying when you have, you know, these wages, it was something that could be looked at.
And they would have to hire additional people to handle that.
No, I don't
And
disagree.
they're not going to do that for nothing. They make nothing off of printing the bills and collecting the bills. They don't make any money at all on that. So I'm a little
Yeah, Jim
resentful
Circle
that
said they've looked at that before in the past, Paul. It was just a question to them.
I'm sorry, I
Jim
couldn't
Circle
understand.
said they've looked at that before in the past to see if it's, you know, a better option. So it was just a question.
And we looked at it when we were talking about the possibility of going to monthly rather than quarterly sewer bills and got the same answer. That
Yeah, that's fine. Just a
it
discussion.
staff to do that by quite a bit. And it just didn't make any sense at that point in time, so that's what we didn't change.
No, I don't
for still
disagree.
quarter.
I just had questions on it.
No problem.
Do we need the money in there for, well, first, like, for that clerical? I mean, we're not
Clerical,
really getting touched.
What account are you speaking of, Craig?
For the
Clerical wages.
clerical, the line in that same, fund, but the clerical wages line.
You got 62 on there, 62,000. But it looks like we've spent 50, almost 52 with 2 months to go.
That 62,000 encompasses one full-time person and a full-time person at 50% in that clerical line. So we're looking at 1.5 individuals on the line item.
That's correct.
And when you think about the magnitude of work and the amount of people that we have, it's really not that bad.
No, it's not.
So I was just asking a question. So
Any other questions in that group of accounts? There's a lot of them there. That's an expensive operation, operating that plant.
that's why I looked into it. All right, Dave, let's move on.
We can't move on any farther because that's the end.
Right.
So
Ms. Hirschberger?
At the last meeting, the board asked me to look into the sheriff's vehicles. To be back in the general fund. We ordered 4 because of the one that was totaled. So we have 4 new cars coming in. Most likely they won't hit till next fiscal year. Now, the question that the board had is the $50,000 there. Based on what it's showing that we're gonna get from insurance to help cover that one vehicle, we are probably gonna need that 50,000 to complete the installation of the equipment and the wrapping of the cars. We're not gonna get enough from the insurance, and the 120 won't be enough to cover all 4.
Okay, so we've gone through the whole budget then. So we're completed, correct?
yes,
Okay, we've cut out, in my estimates, I mean, we're around the 500 some thousand mark, correct, Dave? I mean, you sent me 493 before this,
correct.
okay? We've heard 40%. Could see a loss of 40%. Seen that number, I've heard 50%, and now the state's saying it's only gonna be a $300,000 cut. I personally think we need to cut harder than what we are. In case, things come up, it does change. What if it changes? Now we're pulling out of our, general fund to cover costs and cover loss of revenue, state share revenue. Ms. Tenneberry showed me the same thing you just talked about in the beginning a few days ago, and I said, I don't believe it. Be honest with you. I don't believe it. I don't think it's going to be that. I think this board has to plan better than a $500,000 personally.
We definitely need to plan for the worst.
Yeah, I mean, if it does come at 40%, we'd have to come up with $800,000. So, Mr. Francis?
Being that I just heard about that change that the state sent through, today or whenever that was, what is that all about? And how reliable would that projection be?
Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, they're going to meet again in August. And I don't think the projection is going to be reliable until the state budget has been completed and approved.
That's the problem. Ms. Tenneberry?
This is part of my job in IDA, and I have talked to many different townships all over the state. And I don't know if you all heard Governor Whitmer's address today, but as long as it takes to open up the economy in Michigan, with everybody being able to get back, I know not 100%, there's going to be social distancing in restaurants and all kinds of things, but as long as we are taking a long time to open up the economy, these numbers are going to, I'm going to say, decrease. What you saw today, what Dave was referring to, is the projected state shared revenue. That's all based on the economy. That's all based on the sales and travel. All of that hasn't opened up yet, so it is almost guaranteed that it's going to go down again. What they projected, they had to give that number, and because that's the projected based on where they are today. But as long as things don't improve and businesses aren't allowed to go full force, it's going to decrease. And everybody I talked to, every township said that they were going to fund based on, set their budgets based on the 40% cut, because everybody is pretty sure that it's we're gonna take another big cut by August. And even more so down the road, because summer tourism is going to be much, you can't do as much in Michigan anymore, in the future projection as you can in Ohio or Wisconsin. So people are gonna find a different place to vacation this summer. So that's the thinking that I have received from other people.
That's kind of the same thing I'm hearing. I've been heavily in tune with the state, talking with Congressman Wahlberg and Jason Shepard, and I'm sure Mr. Clements has as well. I don't know if he's hearing the same things, but I'm hearing the same things. Plan for the worst. The webinar we were on said to tighten your belts up for the next 3 to 5 years out. I've been looking at the 40% the whole time. I agree that things can change. It can go up, can go down, but we're at an all-time low in history for unemployment here in Michigan. All-time high. So all those things don't add up to more money. Mr. Steiner.
And agree with those numbers. As we all know, this region, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, all being very heavily tied to the automotive industry. Right now, they're looking at startups, even at some of the automotive factories, around 25%, and at how long that goes. Mexico is just starting to get some approvals to start firing up their equipment. And as we know, there's a lot of componentry that comes out of Mexico. So that is also slowing down the OEMs from being able to build. And again, if the state's saying they're not going to reevaluate this till August, I guarantee you that's got a lot to do with it, is that industry alone from automotive. They're even projecting, though, even if we could go almost full bore, we'll be lucky to hit 75% in Q4 with the volume. So yeah, I think we need to look at that 40%. And if we're lucky and it isn't 40, great. But I think we need to plan for that 40.
Well, if we're lucky and it isn't 40, then we can fix the roads we've been wanting to fix. Mr. Nerd.
This isn't very much, but I wanted to throw this in at this point. I talked to Krista today, and we talked about the Treasurer's Department and some of the things that I thought might be something to throw out to her. And she agreed, and I think you don't have to trust my word if you want to talk to her yourself, but she agreed that the incoming deputy treasurer
should not get the raise. It's not much, but it's on the budget as the raise. But somebody who is being sworn in June shouldn't be getting a raise in July. And she was in agreement with that. She actually thought about that herself. And so, I mean, that would make a change in the salary and the FICA and all that other stuff that's associated with it. But I just wanted to throw that out that Krista did agree to keeping the deputy's salary at the current level for this fiscal year.
Mr. Francis?
Well, the raise that you're speaking of is what, the 2%?
I guess, I'm not sure.
That took effect February 1st, not July.
But the pay for the new girl coming in would be getting just what Krista's getting now.
Well, and that's subject to board approval. That's the board decision on what you pay the deputy.
No, I get that. I was just throwing out what our
but-
conversation was.
Okay.
So the question is, I mean, we can sit here and twiddle our thumbs, but are we gonna cut more out of this budget? Mr. Francis?
I guess, you know, and this is my last shot at it, but I think the board ought to ask for a printout of all the changes that we've made so far. So we can see it in black and white, line for line, and then sift back through and consider whether we need to make some more cuts. Because I did a little work on projecting what the fund balance might be. And David handed out a sheet earlier on that we all got using a fund balance of a little over 33,177,000, but that includes some funds that are not spendable. Those are reserves for various items. So I think the spendable for the unencumbered fund balance is about 2.8 million. Now, the budget adjustments that he's proposing that we got today for the year we're in right now will increase the deficit for the current year from $650,000 using fund balance to cover to about $1,121,000 for the current year. So if you start with that fund balance of 2.8 minus a projected shortfall in the current year that we're in right now of $1,121,000, that brings us down to a projected fund balance of June 30th, 2020, next month, of $1,685,000. So if we take that as a number just to be talking about, the unadjusted budget for next year, as it sits right now, that's in print, shows a deficit for that year of 1.048 million. That reduces the fund balance, if we made no adjustment, that reduces the fund balance at the end of June of 21 to $636,000, or in that ballpark. Now, we've made some cuts already of 400 or whatever the number is. That will drive that fund balance higher, so it would end up around maybe $1 million. Now, our goal for the last few years is to try to keep our fund balance at about 1.5 million. So we're not all that far off from that, under that. But I think it would be prudent for the board to see all the numbers that we've made the changes so far on in black and white, and then circle back and see if we need to adjust some more.
Yeah. Ms. Pinneberry?
Well, I totally agree. I want to see all the numbers before I vote on a budget. I want to see a printout of the changes that have been made. But I have to continue to reiterate, we cannot continue to have budget adjustments at that level every year. We have to find a system that you cannot purchase something unless it's in your budget, or you have to go to get a budget adjustment. The board needs to decide whether these things that are purchased are necessary. I mean,
seriously, I just can't believe that we're willing to accept the fact that, what did you say, $600,000 is the budget adjustments that we're gonna have before the end of the fiscal year? That's irresponsible of a board, if you ask me. I mean, that's not very good use, or control of taxpayer dollars. That just sends me right over the edge.
Mr. Clemens?
So I agree with a couple of things. We absolutely have to see a revised budget. I don't need mine printed. I actually would prefer it digitally. But a couple of points. First off, I agree with Nancy and Paul Peroni that the numbers we're seeing as far as the state cuts have only just begun. We are a border county, and as the economy weakens and slows, you're going to continue to see people migrate across the border to Ohio where options are greater. That's going to further drive down our revenue problem. We have real concerns with the school board as far as how in the world they're going to put forth school next year. As long as we hear the word social distancing, that's a capacity issue. Capacity creates a problem. And where we have a capacity problem, that has a real potential to constrict employment, because if moms and dads have to begin to make arrangements for their children to be home half the week or some odd schedule that isn't, conducive to a regular employment schedule, we're going to continue to see not only the weakened economy due to revenue and taxation from spending, but we're going to continue to have outrageous unemployment benefit problems, et cetera. So I say all of that to say, in previous years, I have requested or suggested that our budget needs to be as lean as it can conceivably be. And if a department head or anybody within our township has a request, if the request is important enough, you'll bring it to the board and ask for permission to spend the money. I would suggest that if a department head is either embarrassed or sheepish about bringing forth an expenditure, that might ought to be a flag as to the relevance of how important that expenditure is. Now, normal budget years, great economy, I totally understand, but that is not where we are. And so given all of that, I think we have to cut where we are. We have to expect our department heads, I trust you guys, you make rational decisions, but bring it to the board before the expenditure is. If you look at our board, we are not a board that 5-4 votes on everything. We are typically a 6-1-7-0 board as long as logic prevails. Trust the board to help you, but I think we have to have those cuts. That's all I have. Well, lastly, excuse me, one last thing. In all of this, we still haven't resolved a fire station that has a price tag sitting on it. And I, for one, will not vote on a budget until we have resolution as to what our plan is with the fire station. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Francis.
I've got a comment on that if now is the time for that, on the funding of the fire station renovations. I just am very adamant in my thinking that our fund balance is not made up of all cash. Our cash was loaned to the SADs. We've got $1.9 million sitting in receivables from SADs this past year. They show up on the financial statement, the one that we get every month. You can see it for yourself by SAD name. That's where the cash is. We do not have excess cash in the general fund to the tune of $700,000 to fund the renovations. That's why I'm saying we need to seek to borrow those funds and pay off over a period of time. I originally talked to the banks about it and got a 10-year, they call it it's not a commitment, but it is a what do they call it? It's a $700,000 10-year loan at 3.5% interest, payable over 10 years on a quarterly basis. Now that would mean I did a amortization schedule, and if that were to be signed into a loan, that would mean a cash outflow every year of a little over $83,000 to fund that loan on a quarterly basis. Now, it's a 10-year loan, but there's no prepayment clause. So if we could use those funds for the next 2 or 3 years rather than part with 700 all at once that we really don't have right now. That would give us some time to maybe pay that 10-year loan off a few years early and
Hey,
save the
Paul,
interest.
I thought the money was loaned out for the SADs from the water fund.
They've loaned out some, but the balance sheet on the general fund shows $1,932,819 as of the end of April, as receivable from half a dozen or 6 or 7 SADs.
I know, but I thought that money was loaned from the water fund because there was roughly $3 million in that fund or something, and it's depleted down. We can't loan any more out of it. That was my understanding, and Ms. Hirschberger is shaking her head yes. But my point is right now, I asked Mr. Manning for a number earlier this week of what we saved last meeting, and it's $493,000. So if anybody figured it, what we've done today, we can add that to the 493, and that gives us a real idea of where we're at. If we're trying to get to 1.2, 1.3, we have a lot more discussions to talk about. I don't know if we want to talk about it tonight. We have 12 minutes left, and this is Mr. Francis's last meeting, and I know some well wishes were saved. So I don't know if we want to add, I think we should add one more meeting for the budget before we take it to the board. I say we do it next Thursday or something again and get some good numbers, and then we could discuss through, do we want to get to that 1.2? Because we're nowhere near right now, Mr. Steiner.
Yeah, and I agreed, and I even talked to Mr. Francis myself, that I know we originally talked about taking the money from general fund for the fire station. At this point in time, that was pre-COVID-19, and I think Mr. Francis's due diligence there on looking at banking institutions, if we're going to do this properly, we have to protect ourselves. Granted, we don't want to pay interest that's unnecessary, but I don't think we need to take money out of the general fund. He already said a minute ago that the projection would be about 600,000 shortfall, and even if we did already cut a 400 and some thousand out of the budget now, that's still a couple $100,000 shortfall. And the money that's also encumbered that we can't touch, we have to be very, very careful. So I think we need to move forward at the next board meeting, make a final decision how we're going to proceed on that, and make the determination: are we taking it from the general fund, or are we going to go to a loan?
I agree. Let's schedule a meeting next Thursday, same time. Dave, you come back with a update. I want a general fund update, exactly where we are, general fund. I want to know our fund situation that we have in general fund for too many different numbers.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and go with public comment at this time.
When are we gonna be able to get the updated one, and are we able to get a physical copy as well?
You want a hard copy or an email copy?
George, do we have any public comments?
I'll take both. I would take both if possible.
Yes,
I want a hard copy.
Okay,
and like Craig just said, with the budget adjustments we made, I don't think we need all the in-betweens. We need to know where we started and where we finished up. We've made a couple changes. Let's go with the initial and where we're at today. And those are the numbers we need to look at.
We have until the 16th of June to approve it, or is it published for the 2nd?
I had it published for the 2nd. I don't know if I can do that or not.
Hi, Ms. Keen, how you doing today? Go ahead with your name and address.
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Hold on, I'm turning down the TV. I'm trying to listen to the meeting as well. I have a couple of concerns. Nancy, thanks for standing up for the library. It's essential that the advisory board have some authority. I anticipated new carpet, and I think before we do bushes, that we need to take care of the inside as well. The library is an essential service, it should be, and what happens inside is far more important than the appearance on the outside. It only has to look nice, not hotty-toddy. The chiller should be a board obligation, as we do own the building. And I was under the impression that the millage was for the carpet. So again, I think different than the rest. But remind me, who is the responsibility of checking our buildings? Hopefully, the CPI program can assist with watching over these problems, such as the library and the police station, without having to hire somebody's friend to come in and tell us what to do. There should be money set aside for that type of thing instead of a millage. A millage should not be used for this type of thing. Fiscally irresponsible, in my opinion, to move forward with the roundabout when you have a viable, cheaper option. This is a prime case of, let me have my way, and we're going to do it. And no, I don't have the money. I don't even have all the easements yet. The sidewalks at the library, did I hear somebody say that there was a higher price for the concrete than what they were given? Again, there is another irresponsible person who signed contracts and okayed a project before they had the money. Again and again, we keep doing this over and over and over. I'm concerned because we should approach the budget each year that something horrible is going to happen. Poor Midland. I would like to know where the line item is that provides the laptops to each employee, because you're all obligated for the same job. And the millages, what are we going to do if the millages fail? Those things are in the people's hands, and the park board is suffering because there is no millage that was passed years ago. I'm just really concerned. There's a lot of things that we should not have to give up items because of a roundabout, because of putting water under the railroad track. That wasn't even essential. That did not have to happen. And so there are expenses that aren't hidden, such as the needs that should be labeled. I hope that one for the library gets labeled as the library, so that it's not hidden. And, you know, I did send some of you an email talking about the monies that I found. I went out and did some research too, but see, I'm not a board member and I'm not an elected official, and I don't have to have permission to have select individuals running around trying to manhandle or hide or upend the carts without the board knowing ahead of time. I find it very deceptive and very untrusting. So, Mr. Francis, I want to thank you and your family for all that you've done in the community over the years. Dave Manning, continue to do the excellent work. Trudy, I see that you're on top of this stuff, so I'm giving you kudos. And to the rest of the board members, yeah, let's not vote till we see all these changes in place. And the public would love to see this stuff. So thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. You know, I typically won't address Ms. Keene, but I'm going to have to tonight because she's so far off on so many levels that I don't even know where to begin. The concrete is a donation job, okay? First and foremost, budgeted $4,000. We're getting it done for the cost of the concrete, free labor. The roundabout does not have another option. We have a grant for $600,000 for that project, a roundabout at that corner from the road commission, okay? That's a grant from a federal grant, so there is no other option, okay? This board, I tell you what, but I'm not gonna go any further, but I could just say that I typically won't address her comments, but she's off on so many levels, so. George, go ahead with the next comment.
Well, I guess that's me. This is Lamar, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I've been watching. As I asked 2 meetings ago, if not before that, if you would please publish the budget that you're currently working on? And would you publish the budget that you're projecting for 2021 so that we can follow what you're doing? Fortunately, I understand the chart of accounts and have been involved in putting the township budgets together for years, so I went back to a couple of your audited budgets and I could generally follow where you're going. A month ago, or pretty close to a month ago, I sent an email to a majority of the board saying, you got some serious issues that you're facing. You are taking a paring knife to the budget rather than a butcher knife. You have to do some serious cutting. I support Nancy when she said, you are spending money that you have not budgeted, and all of a sudden you're doing a series of adjustments in May and June to your current budget. That is not the way to run a business. You should be coming forward with ideas, discuss them with the board, try to assess whether it's an important or not important program, figure out where it fits in the budget, and commit the money before you start down the project. We can just look at the Michigan Tavern program. Bought the project, paid for it, then we found what? Asbestos. We found heavy metals. We found all kinds of problems with it. That should not have been the case. However, you're stuck with it now. But in any event, my view is you're going to have to do a butcher knife attack to the budget and not a paring knife. And if you don't do that now, you're going to have to do it next year. I listened to Paul suggest that maybe your rainy day fund or the general fund balance is going to be somewhere around $1 million. That is not enough, folks. You should be talking about $1.5 million, as you talked about several times in the past. So just get it taken care of, and good luck, because you're talking about people now. Thank you. Bye.
Again, a little bit of misinformation there that I'm going to clear up. The tavern was purchased with the understanding that there was no issues, okay? The issues we were willing to accept as a board was a few $1,000s worth of asbestos that was removed. We had it taken care of, so not stuck with it. We're going to have a great product in the end. George, we're getting a lot of feedback. Not sure why, but we're going to have a great job in the end, and I'm excited for the project. Definitely not stuck with it. So any more comments, George, public? Okay, moving on. Board commissioners' comments. Mr. Clements.
I'll be brief. We have 1 minute. Paul Francis, congratulations. I'll talk to you offline, but it's been a pleasure to serve with you, to know you. We're going to miss you.
Anybody else? Mr. Steiner, I know you have a comment. There you go.
Same thing, Paul. I've known you for a lot of years now. It's been terrific, and I know you through the township and also through the Lions Club, and it's been a great ride, and hopefully that ride continues for a long time. Just because you're not on the board doesn't mean we can't be on the same ride. So congrats and enjoy your retirement, Paul, and I know your wife will be glad to have you back around.
Anybody else? Any other board members?
Paul, I'll see you at next week's budget meeting.
Will do. Thank you. I think Lamar's exactly right. And that's why I'm suggesting we see where we are now in black and white and then start whittling away on that, because we do have a serious problem. And it's going to take some serious thinking on how we get through that problem. It's not the end of the world, but
between the couple of calls we have some armchair quarterbacks. Believe me, this board is working hard. We're not taking a paring knife. We're getting started. The hard part's going to come very shortly. This board works very hard. We're diligent in everything we do. We take our job serious. That's why we're doing everything we're doing with the library. Okay? I'm the elected official here, so you guys are as well. We take our job serious, and we've saved a ton of money. I am so proud of the work this board's done in the last few years. Thank the Lord we have. with LEDs, controls, streetlights, all the work we've done, all the volunteer work we've had done. Because if we didn't do it, we'd be in a whole lot worse situation. I can tell you that. And you all know all the projects we've done. I'm proud of them. So with no further comments or questions, we stand adjourned. We'll see you next week, guys.